Once upon a time in a faraway forest lived a bear unlike any other, Benny, the bouncing bear. Imagine a bear large and cuddly, with a coat as brown as chestnuts in autumn. Benny wasn't just an ordinary bear. No, Benny was special. He had a unique ability that set him apart from his forest friends. Benny could bounce, yes, bounce like a ball, with a spring in his step that was as infectious as his laughter. Benny wasn't just about fun and games, though. He had a heart as big as his bounces. He was always there, ready to lend a helping paw, using his bouncing ability to reach places others couldn't. Whether it was to retrieve a kite stuck in a tree or to give a lift to a weary traveler, Benny was there. With his bouncing, he brought joy and laughter to everyone he met. Benny, with his bouncy, jumpy joy, was the happiest bear in the entire forest. One sunny day, Benny decided to go on a bouncing adventure through the forest. As the morning dew sparkled on the leaves, Benny set off, his bouncing taking him on a winding path through the towering trees. The forest was his playground, each bounce filling him with glee. With the wind in his fur and the earth beneath him springing him forward, Benny was in his element. Soon Benny came across a tall tree that stretched high into the sky. Its branches were out of reach for regular animals, but not for Benny. With a mighty bounce, he soared up and playfully brushed the highest leaves, much to the surprise and delight of the birds perched above. On he bounced, deeper into the heart of the forest. He then encountered a wide river, its waters glistening under the sun. Benny didn't hesitate. He crouched low, and with a joyous leap, he bounded across the river in a single bounce, leaving the fish below in a state of amazed wonder. As Benny continued his adventure, he was faced with his biggest challenge yet. A deep valley that cut through the forest. The other side seemed miles away, but Benny, with his heart full of courage, took a deep breath. He then bounded forward with all his might. His bounce was so powerful it echoed through the forest, and he soared over the valley, landing safely on the other side. Throughout his journey, Benny's bounces not only took him through the forest, but also brought him closer to the other animals. His cheerful disposition and playful bouncing endeared him to everyone he met, resulting in many new friendships. Benny's adventure was more than just a day of bouncing. It was a day of overcoming challenges, making friends, and exploring the beautiful forest that he called home. Benny, using his bouncing ability, managed to traverse through the forest, making new friends along the way. In his adventure, Benny stumbled upon a little squirrel stuck high up in a tree. Now, this wasn't just any tree. It was as tall as a 5-story building with branches that looked like arms reaching out to the sky. The squirrel was perched on one of these branches, its tiny form shaking with fear. Benny, our bouncing bear, stood at the base of the tree, his furry brow furrowed in concern. He gazed up at the squirrel, his heart brimming with sympathy. The squirrel was indeed in a pickle. It was too scared to move, its tiny claws clutching the branch tightly. Now, Benny wasn't just a bouncing bear. He was also a bear with a big heart. He knew he couldn't just leave the squirrel up there. He had to do something. But what? Benny looked at his own big, round body and then up at the towering tree. An idea began to form in his mind. Benny would bounce. He would bounce as high as he could, reach the squirrel and bring it down to safety. But it wasn't as easy as it sounded. The tree was incredibly tall, and the branch on which the squirrel was stuck was quite high. Benny would need to bounce higher than he had ever bounced before. But he was determined. He had to save the squirrel. Gathering his strength, Benny began to bounce. Once, twice, thrice. Each bounce was higher than the last. He bounced with all his might, his determination pushing him higher and higher. It was a sight to behold. A bear bouncing high into the sky, his heart full of bravery and resolve. However, it wasn't enough. Benny was still a few feet short. He didn't give up. He took a deep breath, focused, and gave it one more try. This time he bounced higher than he ever had, higher than he thought he could. With one big bounce, Benny reached the squirrel, safely bringing it down to the ground. His mission was accomplished. The squirrel was safe, all thanks to Benny, the bouncing bear with a big heart. Word of Benny's bouncing rescue quickly spread throughout the forest. And just like that, Benny, our bouncing bear, became an overnight sensation. His heroism was the talk of the forest, with every creature whispering tales of his daring rescue. The squirrels chattered about it up in the trees, the rabbits hopped with excitement as they retold the story, and even the owls, who usually kept to themselves, couldn't help but hoot about Benny's bravery. Benny's bouncing had always been a source of joy and laughter, but now it was also a symbol of courage and gallantry. He was no longer just Benny the bouncing bear. He was Benny, the hero of the forest, the one who could bounce into action whenever someone was in need. Soon, other animals began to seek Benny's help. The beavers needed assistance in building their dam, and who better to lend a hand, or rather a paw, than Benny? With a bounce here and a bounce there, he made the work seem like play. Then the birds needed help reaching their nests, high up in the trees. Once again, Benny was there, bouncing up to the highest branches with a chirp of thanks from the grateful birds. Through every challenge, Benny was always ready to lend a helping paw. He showed everyone that a cheerful spirit and a willingness to help others can turn even the simplest of abilities into something extraordinary. His bouncing wasn't just fun anymore. It was a way to bring the forest community closer together, a way to solve problems, and a way to spread joy and kindness. But Benny didn't let his newfound fame change him. He remained the same bouncing, cheerful bear he always was, using his unique talent to make a difference in his own special way. He wasn't interested in the applause or the accolades. He was just happy to be able to help his friends, to bring a smile to their faces, and to make the forest a better place for everyone. Benny, the bouncing bear, became the bouncing hero of the forest. Benny's bouncing adventure taught everyone in the forest some valuable lessons. So what did we learn from Benny's journey? A lot of things, actually. Benny the bouncing bear showed us that sometimes the things that make us different are the things that make us special. His unique bouncing ability wasn't just for fun. It was a tool that he could use to lend a helping paw when someone was in trouble. Remember the stuck squirrel? He was up in a tree, scared and alone. But Benny, with his bouncing ability, was able to reach him and bring him down safely. He didn't hesitate or think twice about it. He just did what he knew was right. And that's a lesson in bravery for all of us. Benny also taught us about the importance of helping others. He didn't keep his bouncing ability to himself. Instead, he used it to help his friends, the animals of the forest, whenever they needed him. He was always ready to bounce into action, whether it was to fetch a fruit from a high branch or to help a friend out of a sticky situation. In doing so, Benny showed us that our unique abilities aren't just for our own benefit. They're gifts that we can use to help others and make the world a better place. Just like Benny, we all have something special about us. It might not be bouncing, but whatever it is, we can use it to do good. So as we wrap up our story of Benny the bouncing bear, let's remember the lessons he taught us. Be brave, be helpful, and use your unique abilities for good. And so, Benny the bouncing bear reminds us all that each one of us is unique in our own way, and we can use our unique abilities to help others and make the world a better place.